that I'd like to go into depth about is the chapter 16, verse 20. It says, the portion is called Shoftim, about judging matters. And it says that you are supposed to appoint judges who do not take bribes, or the temeshpat, ki shochad, bribes, blind the eyes of the righteous. Then we go to verse 20. Tzedek, tzedek tirdov. Justice, justice shall you pursue. You shall pursue justice. Laman tichya v'yarash haaretz, so that you shall live and inherit the land. That Hashem your God is giving to you. This is the commandment to pursue justice, and of course, this is a verse that's often cited, and one of the questions is, why does it say justice twice? Justice, justice, you shall pursue. What is pursuing? What are we being told that will? Why is this commandment related to living and inheriting the earth? So I just wanted to share a few Talmudic texts on this, about this, and then go into it a little deeper. So first we look at Rashi. What do we understand with this verse? Justice, justice you shall pursue. Rashi says, Halach achar beitin yafa. Rashi says, you must go after a proper court. You have to search out a proper court. We'll go into this Rashi in a little bit, in a while. And then it says, you shall live and inherit the land. Kidai hu minoya dayanin hakasherim la'achiyot Yisrael u'shivano ad matan. That this is in and of itself enough. The appointing of proper judges is enough to allow the Jewish people to live and to place them on their land. The proper judges is in and of itself enough of a reason for the Jewish people to live securely on their land. It's I'm not going to get into the politics of it on either side, but it is, I guess, a bitter irony that prior to October 7th and October 6th, Israel was on the verge of there was just major demonstrations every night, and they were fighting over judges, judicial reform over judges. And so we see from here that judges, the Torah is telling us, is the center, is axiomatic for having a society to live properly, to having a proper society. Axiomatic is having judges. So if you have the proper judges, you will live and inherit the land. So what do we do with this text? Rashi quoted from a Gemara in Sanhedrin 32b. And what does it mean? Justice, justice you shall pursue. So the first, we'll look at two texts, one from one from Sanhedrin 32b, and one from the Yerushalmi. First is from Sanhedrin 32b. Reish Lakish Rami Ksiv. Reish Lakish threw two verses against each other. So it says in one verse, with justice you shall judge your colleague. Another verse says, justice, justice you shall pursue. So which is it? So Rav Ashi says that what this means is echad l'din v'echad l'pshara. That one justice means in court, to what is the letter of the law, and another time the word justice appears is to teach us that you should try to seek compromise or mediation even before the justice. As it says, let's say you have two ships. This is the example of the Talmud. Let's say you have two ships that are crossing the river. If they will, and they're basically going towards each other. They're going down like a game of chicken. If both of them will cross through the river at the same time, both of them will sink. But if both of them will go one after the other, both of them will pass. Or if you have two camels that are going up a narrow path, and if both of them go up at the same time, both will fall. But if they go up one after the other, then they'll both be able to go up. So what should you do? The one that is there, if one of the camels is filled with packages and the other one is not, and the one who doesn't have packages on it should wait for the one that has packages. The one that's closer and one is not as close, the one that's closer should go, basically you allow the one that's closer to go first. So let's say they're both equally close and both equally distant, then make a compromise between them and everybody will benefit. So the Talmud is pushing this idea that if you compromise, everybody wins in terms of litigation. This is not talking about politics and saying that, about politics. I'm not talking about that. This is just talking about litigation, that when it comes to litigation, if you compromise, it could be a situation where everybody will win. So the Beis Yosef explains that it says, who is a judge? The proper judge is Shaddan Din Emes Lamito. The proper judge is a judge that judges the truth all the way till the truth. That's an unusual phrase. Shaddan Din Emes Lamito. It's to warn a judge that he shouldn't show any favoritism for the one who he's going to find innocent, or hatred to the one who finds guilty. However, we do know that there is a concept, and we saw this in the Daf Yomi, and this is called Shuda de Daina. Shuda de Daina means the court gets to choose. That there are some circumstances where there's no way of determining the law. And under these circumstances, the court has the right, according to some commentaries, even on the basis of their own, basically whim, deciding who to rule in favor. And so this is what's called Shuda Daina. Some say that the Shuda Daina means the court can just think or guess, can just guess who it thinks is victorious. But some say the judge even has the ability just to choose whoever likes more in these circumstances. The Talmud in our tractate is called the Shuda de Daina. The court could throw whichever way it wants. There's another text that talks about this. It says this in the Yerushalmi, in the Jerusalem Talmud, Peah 37a. It says, anybody who doesn't need to take from the charity and ends up taking, in the end, will not die from old age, but rather he will die. He will not die before he actually does need to take help. And anybody who needs to take help from the community and doesn't take, before he dies, he's going to be sustaining and supporting others. Mean to say, the Talmud is saying, if there's somebody who doesn't need to be on the take and they are on the take, they're going to have to end up on the take. But there's somebody who's supposed to be on the take but is too much pride, such a person will actually, in the end, be really a philanthropist and supporting others. And about this it states, Baruch HaGever Asher Yiftach B'Hashem, Hashem Miftacho. Blessed to be the one who trusts in God, and God will trust him. And so too, if there is a judge that judges cases truthfully, such a judge who judges cases truthfully will be rewarded like this by God. So basically, the idea here is that the one who sees the judgment to the truthful conclusion, such a person is going to be rewarded as though they are the person who has basically been true to society. And that's the fundamental teaching of this idea of tzedek, tzedek, tirdov. Hold on one second. Okay, so now that we have gone through the Talmudic texts about this, I wanted to share for a few moments some of the Hasidic ideas about this phrase. So first we go to the first Hasidic Rebbe. We'll go to his the Admor of Zev Mi Zeberj, and he says there are many ways for the inclination. This is related to Rosh Chodesh Elul and repenting. There are many ways for the inclination, the evil inclination, to trap us with his deceit. And just like he makes a lot of plans, and you have to listen to this carefully, to cause us to sin, to bring us to wickedness, sometimes this is the way the evil inclination works. You have to listen carefully to this one. Sometimes he tries to get us to become excessively righteous. What's the problem with being excessively righteous? He doesn't say here, but let's see what it says. And as a result of this, the Torah warns us, tzedek, tzedek, tirdov, meaning to say, don't. You have to look for the pure righteousness. Don't be a tzaddik, too much of a tzaddik, because I guess what you're saying is that the evil inclination knows that if we try to act with too much piety, then that becomes a source of pride and becomes a source of arrogance, and that could lead us down a path of sin as well. So that's the idea here. The tzedek, that don't go too much in either direction. Don't go too much, obviously, in the wicked direction, but also don't go too much in the excessively pious direction, because this will lead us into a place of sin. The Rebbe Bunim Pishischa says as follows. The Rebbe Rebunim says, "B'tzedek tirdov tzedek." When you pursue justice, you have to pursue it with justice. Meaning to say, even though the cause is right, don't think that could justify you to act with deceit, but that also has to be done with honesty and with morality, with above board, with purity. Don't think, well, since this cause is so pure, therefore it'll allow me to cut some corners, to lie, to trick. No, that is what the Torah is telling us. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdov. The pursuit of justice has to be done in the right manner. That's a very beautiful teaching of the Rebbe Rebunim. The Rebbe Lublin, the Choz of Lublin, says as follows. He once said to the Rav HaKadosh, Rav Shimon of Yaroslav, he said, what does it mean, tzedek, tzedek, tirdov? He says something very beautiful here. He says, if you want to live a long life, then what you need to do is try and find tzaddikim and humble yourself before the tzaddikim. Humble yourself before the tzaddikim. This is what the Torah is saying. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdov. Run after each tzaddik and each tzaddik so that you can live. L'man techyeh, so that you can live. By pursuing them, by running after each tzaddik and cleaving to him, then you get life. We get life when we find that tzaddik. If you ever have the ability to see spiritual greatness, then we run after such a person. Jeff, you want to say something?
Yeah, I wondered.
So now we go to the Sfas Emes, the Ger Rebbe. but he first quotes his grandfather, Chidushei Arim, who was the Ger Rebbe before him, and he quotes in the name of Rebbe Bunam that that we never find. I have to think about this. We never find the Torah saying, distance yourself from any sin, from any prohibition. We don't say distance yourself from pork, distance yourself from murder, the Torah, or distance yourself from violating Shabbos. It was only the sages who instituted defenses, but the Torah doesn't do it, except for one example. There's only one time that the Torah tells us distance yourself from something, and that is midvar sheker tirchak. From falsehood, you must distance yourself, and that shows the strength of this prohibition. The strength of the prohibition of saying a falsehood. It's the only time the Torah says distance yourself from something, is from when it comes to a falsehood. So too, the opposite is also true. It says, justice, justice you shall pursue. We never find any place else in the Torah that it says to pursue something. This is the only time, because truth is the foundation of everything. One of the things that's so hurtful to me as a Jew now is, just the way that there's so many lies being spread about the Jews, like the Holocaust deniers are. I mean, it's just such a falsehood. And so the reason why it says the Sfas Emes in the name of his grandfather, the Chidushei Arim, the reason why the Torah says tzedek tzedek tirdof, justice justice you shall pursue, because it's impossible to come passively or just without effort to the complete truth in this world of falsehood. This world is filled with falsehoods. So therefore, we always have to run after justice, to know that you're not going to get it just like passively. You have to pursue it, and that's the idea. And so therefore, it says, "L'man techyev yarasha," so you live and inherit, meaning to say, when are you inheriting it? In the world to come. If you spend your life pursuing justice, pursuing the truth, then we'll inherit the next world. So basically, the idea is that finding truth and justice is something we have to pursue. It's on us. It's our efforts. Can't just accept the lies passively. It's our responsibility to pursue something, to pursue the truth. And it's also our responsibility to distance ourselves from falsehoods, to distance ourselves from hearing falsehoods, from being around people who spread falsehoods. These are our responsibility. The Sfas Emes continues and says, after a person has been able to find a little bit of truth and justice, he needs to strengthen himself so that he never ceases or stops pursuing after truth. Because if a person will somehow go into the world of falsehood after he is able to find a little bit of truth, so therefore what's going to happen is it's as though he won't have any truth at all. Meaning to say that this is a lifetime pursuit, that you see a little bit at the beginning and you can't relax. It's something that you're always must be pursuing, always must be consciousness, because it's so easy to slip in this area. It's very, very easy to slip in the area of telling the truth, of being a truthful person. Very easy to go. Once you start doing it a little bit, it'll overtake your life. Another explanation, this is from Drashos El Ami. This is a beautiful idea. Why does it say justice, justice you shall pursue twice? The word tzedek means truth here. He says because tzedek levad, justice alone is not enough. It's not enough to have justice. Why? Because in the eyes of people, there's a lot of different types of justice, just like there's a lot of different types of truth. So just like there's a truth of falsehood, there's a righteousness of falsehood, and a kindness of a sin. Every judge has his own righteousness, and so therefore it says tzedek tzedek terdov. It doesn't, not righteousness according to your view. You have to pursue it to see what is the pure righteousness, not just your own subjective righteousness. That's his idea. And it's a very powerful idea. It's not enough to just stop at what you think is right. You have to keep analyzing and overanalyzing it and looking at it again and again and again in order to get to this proper path. The Rameir Parmesan says as follows. It says in the Gemara Baba Basra, Test. So we did this, God, Baruch Hashem, we did this 62 days ago. It says, Rav Huna says, Bodkin lemizonos. If a person comes to you and asks for food, you have to check to see if this person really is appropriate to receive your money for food. But in Bodkin l'ksus, we don't check them out. If they say they need money for clothing, we give it to them right away. Somebody comes, he says, I need money for lunch. Rav Huna says, check to see if it's true. But he says they need money for clothing, we don't check. Whereas Rav Yehuda says the opposite. He says we check for clothing. If a person says, I need to buy a new pair of pants, we check to make sure he really needs it, but we don't check for food. If somebody says, I need money for lunch, we don't check for food. So the law, we paskin, how do we rule in the Shulchan Aruch? We rule like Rabbi Yehuda. We rule like Rabbi Yehuda that we check if he says he needs money for clothing, we confirm it, we make sure it's accurate. But if he says he needs money for lunch, we don't check that, we give him lunch money. And this is what the verse means, tzedek, tzedek. There are two types of tzedakahs. There's the charity of clothing and the charity of food. And which one of them do you need to pursue and to do without checking? That is Leman Tichya. So the Rameir Parmesan says, I'll tell you how you remember it. It says there are two types of ways in which a person can come to you for charity. Come to you for charity for clothing, or come to you for charity for money. So how do you know which one that you should pursue to give him the money? Leman Tichya, the one who needs to live. Oh, he needs to live, he needs for food. Then we pass like Rabbi Yehuda that you run to give him the food, you run to give him the money for the food. But for the clothing, you can give him, but you have to go slowly and make sure that it's accurate. This is the beautiful pshat of Rav Meir of Parmesan. There's one more idea here, and this that I want to share. That's from the Nefesh Yehuda. The Nefesh Yehuda says a beautiful idea. He says here, Leika mida de lo remiza be'oraisa. He says the Torah hints to everything. There's a hint to what the sages said. Mitzvah goreris mitzvah, avera goreris avera. He says one mitzvah will lead to another mitzvah. This is found in the idea of tzedek tirdof, that if you pursue a life of righteousness, it will lead to more righteousness. Meaning to say, if you live your life in the upright way, with integrity, it will snowball, and you'll always lead your life like that. But if you lead it in the wrong way, tameh yikra, it will continue down the wrong path. So this is the idea. This is the idea of why it says tzedek tirdof. So these are just some of the ideas about this verse. I want to talk for a moment about the Zaki Mamre, but first I want to pause, see if anybody has any questions about this. Any questions? Okay. So now I want to talk about the rebellious elder. So who is the rebellious elder? It's interesting that right after we talk about all these verses about pursuing justice, pursuing righteousness, there is one case where you're not allowed to do that. You can't pursue the truth. And that is chapter 17, verse 12. This is what's known as the rebellious elder. It says in chapter 17, verse 12, basically the context here is you have a case and you go to the court and the court will decide. And then it says in verse 12, Ve'aish asher ya'aseh v'zadon, vilti shemuel HaKohen. Let's say there will be a man who will act without listening to the Kohen, who is standing there to serve Hashem, your God, or to the judge. Let's say there's a man who doesn't listen. What type of man is this? This is called a rebellious elder of Zaken Mamre. He's the rebellious elder. He doesn't listen. So such a person, that person will die, Israel, and you will uproot him from Israel. So what is the rebellious elder? The rebellious elder is the person who, after the high court rules a certain way, he continues to give a ruling that goes against the ruling of the high court. So it's not that he continues to act that way in private, but he continues to preach publicly against the accepted position of the court. I want to cite such a person is executed, but unlike every other case, the Rashi tells us, unlike every other case in which the person who is executed, I'll read the Rashi, every other case where a person is worthy of capital punishment by the court, they're executed right away. The rebellious elder, we wait until the festival. You can wait as long as 6 months from let's say he's declared a rebellious elder the day after Sukkot, the day after Yontif, then you have to wait up until Pesach, Chol Moed, to execute him then. Why? Because we want to show everybody, we want to make a spectacle of the fact that this person has deviated from the path of the Sanhedrin and he's violating them. But let's look at the discussion in Sanhedrin 86b. It says, Zakei Mamre al pi bezdin. The rebellious elder is only made a rebellious elder if he violates the court, and the court declares him that. As it says, Ki palei mimcha davar mishpat. As it says, when you come up to the court, and they had 3 courts there. There were three batei dinim. One court was at the entrance to the Temple Mount. One court was at the entrance to the courtyard, and one was Belishkas Hagazis. The Lishkas Hagazis is part inside the courtyard, part outside the courtyard of the temple. So the rebellious elder, would come to this court that was at the entrance to the Temple Mount, and he would say, Kach darashti. This is what I taught, but this is what my friends taught. This is what I taught, and this is what my friend said. If they hear him, he says it to them. But if not, they take him, meaning to say, if they accept what he said, then he's good. He can continue to teach. Otherwise, what does he do? He goes to the second court. He could appeal. And he said, listen, this is what I want to teach, but this is what my friends want to teach. This is my teaching, this is what they're teaching. If they accept it, good. Otherwise, now he's been refuted by 2 courts. He's been refuted by 2 courts. And now he comes to the high court, the Beit Din Hagadol, which was in the Lishkat Hagazis. And from there, the Torah went out to all of Israel. As it states, from that place that God will select. So what does he do? He goes back to and then they rule against him. So now he's been refuted by 3 courts. At this point, he goes back to his city. If he taught the Torah there and he continued to teach it in the manner in which he taught before, he's exempt. He's still not liable. Meaning to say, even though he continues to teach what they told him, he's not allowed, that he's wrong, he's still not going to be liable. When is he liable? Im horo la'asot chayev. He's only liable when he says, not only this is what the court says, but I am telling you that this is the proper way that you should behave. Meaning to say, he says, for example, let's say he says, according to my interpretation, you're supposed to wear this color tzitzit. The court ruled you have to wear blue, and he says, no, I rule that you must wear green tzitzit. So if he rules in that manner, he rules against what the court said, then he's responsible. And so this is the idea. Now, a student who rules in this manner would be exempt because the student is not allowed to give his rulings yet. So the rebellious elder is something very specific. It's a person who's been refuted by three courts, and after he's been refuted by three courts, he continues to go back to his hometown and to rule that manner. Such a person is going to be executed. He's put to death. So the Meiri says that the Meiri writing in the 14th century rules that the only way a person can become a rebellious elder is if he's unanimously refuted by the 71 judges of the Sanhedrin. He has to argue with all of them. But if there's one person there who says, I agree with him, then he does not become a rebellious elder. The Divrei Shaul says as follows: why is the Torah so strict with the punishment of the rebellious elder? So he says, it seems that Bala Akeda, who's the Bala Akeda? That is Rabbi Yitzchak Arama. He argues about, so he writes about why were the people of Sodom punished so severely? He says, typically speaking, a person sins even though they know that's a sin because they can't withstand their temptation to sin. And such a person who knows that he's doing something wrong, he just can't withstand his temptation to sin, there's the hope that he's going to repent. But the people of Sodom, they sinned, and they didn't really feel like they were doing anything bad because according to them, they were acting properly according to the laws of Sodom. And that's the problem. That's the danger with the rebellious elder, because the rebellious elder thinks that his ruling is correct. That's the worst type of person, the person who's doing something wrong, but they think that what they're doing is correct. They present the greatest danger. The greatest danger are the ones who are acting that way on principle. They are the ones who you can't compromise with. They are the ones who represent a tremendous threat to our society. And we see such people around us today that they're 1,000% convinced that the Jewish people are wrong, that the Jewish people present a mortal danger to society. Those are the people who, in this sense, are like the rebellious elder. They represent an existential threat to our society. I just want to stop here because I have to go. But if anybody has any questions,